Do you feel independent after that particular day?
No. Independence is anti-Catholic. Be dependent on God.
Amen.
But independent from Britain.
Yeah, we can celebrate that.
If you so choose.
England removal.
Amerixit.
Yeah. We had to first rid ourselves of empire to become empire.
That is true. We had to become economic empire instead of military empire.
Mm-hmm. Under the guise of being anti-empire, you see. But
yes,
it was a fun America Day nonetheless.
People watched exploding things.
Yeah, I actually didn't this year. I heard plenty of exploding things that I'm pretty sure were fireworks.
Yeah.
It was funny in DL over the weekend. You just sat outside. It just sounded like a war zone with all the fireworks and stuff just off in the distance. Pop, pop, pop.
This
Stuff
is
like
America. We celebrate with explosions.
Mm-hmm. I can only imagine, like, from an outsider's perspective, what it must be like thinking of, like, crazy Americans celebrating with explosions.
I mean, our national anthem talks about bombs blowing up.
I mean, say what you will about the Russians, but at least they understand that explosions make for great entertainment. Just ask Tchaikovsky. With the cannons. It was Tchaikovsky, right?
indeed.
Oh, yes. Tchaikovsky.
The
Cannons are not a musical
1812
instrument. Overture, right?
1812 overture.
Tchaikovsky, cannons are not an instrument. But Tchaikovsky says yes. Tchaikovsky, no. Tchaikovsky, yes! Anyway, besides the Russia and the anti-Russia, how's the week going, boys?
My America Day was pretty good too. We
Yeah.
had a little excursion to a nearby state park in Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
So a few of us went down to the Platte Moving Lake. It's ostensibly a river, but it was about 2 feet deep, so it didn't really count.
Is it like a man-made lake, like a dammed up?
No,
river?
it purports itself to be a river.
Ah,
I am just, it's 2 feet deep, so it's not a real river.
yeah, it's more of a creek. It's kind of like the Crow Wing River in Minnesota. Like, for the majority of the river, you can see the bottom. Like, it gets maybe like 6 feet deep at the very deepest, but most of the time it's like 1 to 2 feet, depending on how much rain you have that year.
Smallest river in the area, and yet they insist on naming a whole county after it.
Yeah, same thing with Otter Tail.
Yeah.
Well, they have a lake and river.
Yeah, so I'll be honest, it's probably a Crow-Wing Lake I didn't know existed.
Yeah, more than likely.
You throw a word salad together, or a letter salad together, it might be a lake in Minnesota.
So many lakes that eventually they just started numbering them, but then they weren't even consistent with the numbering system because there's more than one Lake 10 apparently. And it's just like, come on, guys! Like, you had one job, surveyors who decided where Minnesota is on the map. Just get it right.
But this lake's a 10.
This lake's a 10, but it's a totally landlocked body of water. Let's see. Nathan celebrated the second of the 325 birthdays.
Yes, I
Of the
did.
summer.
That was good.
25th, not 25 birthdays.
I mean, us two have had 25 birthdays now. So
This is true.
you remain
With the
in 2 weeks, week and a half.
yeah, 16 days. So
Okay.
From recording, so more like
probably
10
about
days
2 weeks
from...
Yeah, thereabouts. Not too shabby.
Monday will be the 11th.
Yes, Monday will be the 11th. So yeah, that'll be fun. Just kind of hung out. It sounded like you guys are getting ready for the family reunion next weekend.
One of them, yes.
Okay.
So it was pretty low key. We hung out. We played some board games and card games, and just stuff. Ate some food.
More or less
drank
what
some
we ended up
alcohol.
doing,
It was a good time.
Pretty chill at our place too. Minus a bee flying into the ear of my brother-in-law, not Andrew, but the other one. So that was a whole thing. So long story short, we were playing bocce ball, and me and Ben, my brother-in-law, were on a team, and we got the closest. But apparently in the process, we hit this discarded cardboard box that the bees had decided, and they were like ground wasps, so they weren't like honeybees or anything. They decided to turn this old box into a nest, and so we were in. My brother was in the process of getting a stick to retrieve our bocce balls, and my brother-in-law decides to just, Leroy Jenkins go after the bocce balls to see if he can get in and out before the bees find him. Well, the bees found him, and before we knew it, he was just sort of thrashing about on the ground, like whacking his head. And we are just like, what do we do? What do we do? It didn't sting him. It flew straight into his ear canal and just sort of sat there. And we were just like, what? How do we get this thing out without the bee freaking out and stinging him?
Smoke his ear.
Well, see, that was the thing. We, my mom one of my siblings told me, like, go get like a box of matches and a jar of honey. I'm like, this is a really stupid idea, but it worked. Because they were like, well, nothing on the internet. Apparently, this isn't something that normally happens.
Well, it's your responsibility to write the WikiHow article.
I guess so.
And draw the terrible images about.
Step 1, stop having thoughts. Yeah, it was apparently. I mean, the bee just eventually came out, and without further incident, which was remarkable because a bee sting on the inside of your ear canal is bad news, and we managed to escape. Bodily but not emotionally unscathed. He said he could hear it flying around in there. Sorry to any sensitive listeners. It was just a bad time. We're like, you know what? We're done with bocce ball. But yeah, that was Sunday afternoon. So that was pretty wild. But otherwise, a fairly normal 4th of July for the rest of the weekend.
I actually have a very, very tragic story to tell.
Oh, that's right.
Last
yes.
weekend.
Do tell.
I have, for the Nintendo Switch, Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga. I've been playing through it with James. And
Stay tuned for the video.
Yeah, or multiple.
Yeah, the series.
One of the characters I unlocked was General Grievous, who was just grand old fun. So I bring the game. The game's still on my Switch when I get home, and I'm like, you know what? I might as well show it to my bros in free play and hang out and show the characters and just goof around.
Have some fraternal bonding.
Indeed. Even with my 3-year-old brother, who all he did was fire the pew-pew gun as Mandalorian.
Because he knows who Mando is.
Yes, he does. But, so we were messing around with General Grievous when we activated a glitch. Something about, like, the way some of the animations interacted caused him to swing his arms around like he had lightsabers, but he didn't have them. They were actually stuck in like their 0 position under the map underneath him, ignited up his butt, which is funny because he's swinging around his big old 4 arms with a thing just ignited in his center. So we messed around with that until the point where we accidentally get him just stuck in a pose. And now he is scooting around. And it's like, this is it's not like it's an unfinished game. It's like maybe a little jank here and there, but that comes with the territory of Lego games. But this is like some old school, accidentally left in the thing.
And this wasn't a one-time glitch. Like, you were able to replicate it.
I was able to replicate it consistently. And then, so while we're scooting around, we hit an incline, and he gets a little bit of upward momentum, and he keeps going. So we've eventually figured out a way to manipulate General Grievous in such a way that we could get him to fly around any map we wanted. It was great. We got some like collectibles out of order. We discovered that the Gungan city has no upward boundary. It just goes and goes and goes until you're out of the skybox and in the void. It was beautiful. So I'm like, dude, next time we record, I need to show this to James. This is good content. This is just hilarious, fun content, and I have it down to a science. So I get home to Fargo after the weekend. I boot up my Switch, and I look at the thing, and it's like, Lego Star Wars has an update. I'm like, okay, sure, whatever. I think nothing of it. But then it hits me, and I'm like, I need to check this now.
They might have patched it.
I go into Lego Star Wars, and I can no longer activate General Grievous God mode.
Dum, dum,
And
dum.
I was the big sad.
Yes. Very
It
sad
went
day.
from a 2,000 out of 10 game to a 10 out of 10 game in a single moment.
It's not fantastic. It's good.
It's not transcendent. It's just great.
It's not literally transcendent. Even the character soars to new heights, even above the map the creators intended. Just beyond exceeding expectations of the creator's original vision. And the skybox intended.
Imagine
for
the
viewership.
speedrun strats, my dudes.
Yes.
Imagine the game's done quick. Grievous percent.
Think of all the T-pose flying you can do to catch those annoying, hard to reach mini kits that are no longer. You have to play the game normally to get now.
Which is why it was patched, obviously. And I'm like, okay.
Sad day.
But yeah, it's like, gone are the days of the GameCube where you discover a glitch and it's there forever.
Or even just single release games where there weren't patches.
Well, after the age of the internet and DLC, patches became the thing. Mm-hmm. You had to wait for another release and buy another physical disc, or have them send one to you if the glitch was bad enough.
Right.
In order to patch things over.
Certain games, even in the early 2000s, were doing patches.
Right.
But console games, not so much.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, console games, you would get a second printing, which was the 1.0.2 release.
Yep.
That glitched out the one, or that patched out the one glitch that was causing either game-breaking bugs or a minor speedrun technique. That why did you take that out? It was cool. That's the only that everybody's going to avoid that version now.
It's interesting when you pick up a game that's beyond its life cycle, and you just see which version it is that you're playing, how many patches they had to do to get it to where it's in the state you are currently playing. Kind of interesting.
So yeah, on one hand, I'm glad we live in this internet age of patchable games because No Man's Sky is apparently playable now. Mm-hmm. But
Star Wars Battlefront is another one.
Is now less of a loot box driven game.
Yep.
But Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga had a moment of magic that it lost.
Magic.
So that's my funny story of the weekend.
Anybody want to hear my funny story of the last 48 hours?
Go ahead, man.
Do it. This is for the content.
This is for the content. So we have made it known on the podcast prior that we are fans, at least Riley and I are fans of The Crunch. Nathan just hasn't gotten around to listening to it yet, I don't think.
No.
The Crunch Catholic podcast. So recently they started doing a Twitch live streams. So I hopped on last night because I had some time. And I tried to restrain myself from causing too much ruckus in the chat. But at one point, I made some good pokes and jabs they thought were pretty funny. One of which was Patrick, who is a youth minister, was talking about his using his work laptop or something, and I just said, now imagine if they just sold all of the church's youth minister laptops, the poor they could feed. that was pretty good. But what ended up happening was one of them said my username on Twitch was another guy's username, and we should fight over it, and maybe start Crunch fan podcasts. And I was like, oh, I do have a podcast, but I'm not going to shill for it. And they're like, no, come on, go ahead. And I was like, okay, fine. So if shout out to you if you're one of the 26 people besides John and me on that live stream and you decided to give us a listen. Hello, and thank you for being here. Yeah, that's my story. It was a fun stream. I've never actually sat and watched an entire stream before, but
I didn't know that it was happening until it was already over.
Mm-hmm.
So I missed out on it. But
do they have the VOD up on Twitch?
Yes, the VOD. I was combing it a little bit to try to find the point where you were shilling it, but
oh yeah,
I didn't.
It was like about 3/4 of the way through, I think. The first half of the Twitch, they were just like frantically trying to figure out OBS, which I was sort of relating to and giving unhelpful suggestions because I didn't actually know how it worked, but I thought I did, and things like that. But I wasn't alone in that either.
I've been using Streamlabs for too long to like know how vanilla OBS works anymore.
Yeah, okay.
So
I've gotten it to a point where it's like I can make it function for my purposes. But yeah, speaking of functioning to work for our purposes, we're the Palladium Papists. I'm James.
I'm Nathan.
And I'm Riley.
And I feel like General Grievous might have been a better transition, but I said my story too soon.
Yeah, this works though. Speaking of things that sort of generally serve their purpose, we're going to talk about Kenobi, the new Disney Plus series, in a edition of Super Serial.
One day, 3 lads from North Dakota were bitten by a radioactive television, and with their powers combined, they are Super Serial!
Yes.
So yeah, it's been a little bit since we've talked about a recent show on the pod. I think, what was it, the Bucky and the Winter Bucky?
Well, we did it.
I think, yeah.
We did that after WandaVision, so yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it came out
Time
after
to go
WandaVision.
comb the catalog.
No. That we did Moon Knight.
Oh yeah, we did Moon Knight right
And
after
also,
that came out, too.
that was Disney Plus. You can tell what service we're still subscribed to because it hasn't expired yet.
Yep. And there's still things worth watching. Hopefully we can...
Maybe.
Maybe.
Well, okay, you can watch every single piece of Phineas and Ferb media created by Disney on there, so I think it's worth it on that front. But regardless, this one severely lacks any sort of catchy theme song to open it, although it'd be funny if it did, considering the tone. So yes, we for those of you,
It's 20 whole years of self-isolation. A new hope comes to us to end it.
So those of you familiar with Star Wars know that at the end of The Revenge of the Sith, episode 3 of Star Wars, Anakin Skywalker has been corrupted by the dark side, and in a fight with Obi Wan becomes horribly disfigured and assumes the mantle of the Sith Lord Darth Vader.
Well, he had assumed Darth Vader's name before that, but
Right,
yes.
right. But now he's sort of the cyborg man we know and love from the original trilogy, Darth Vader. In the process, his secret wife Padme gave birth to twins, and given how powerful their father is in the Force, Yoda and Obi-Wan and Bail Organa, this Republic senator, are like, okay, we need to split them up and hide them from their dad. So the girl goes off to Alderaan to be Senator Organa's adopted daughter, and Luke goes off to Tatooine, Anakin's home planet, to live with his stepbrother and his wife.
Well, with
as
Anakin's
their adopted
stepbrother
son.
and his wife.
Right, yeah, with Anakin's stepbrother and his wife as sort of their adopted kid on the moisture farm. So Obi-Wan is hanging out on Tatooine, sort of keeping a watchful eye on Luke to protect him from a distance. And he's kind of working as a space fishmonger in the desert somehow, with totally realistic looking fish meat, and sort of making a living. It's been about 10 years since the events of Revenge of the Sith, and we have a very downtrodden Obi-Wan who is filled with regrets over how Revenge of the Sith went, and
The entire prequels went, in fact.
reflected by Ewan McGregor's immediate thoughts after the release of said movies, with the initial fan reaction. So, about 10 years later, the Jedi who escaped the Great Purge
Order 66.
Order 66, yes, are sort of hiding about the galaxy, and these corrupted Jedi turned into basically slaves/assassins called Inquisitors are roaming about the galaxy using the dark side
Looking for someone to devour. Resist them, solid in your faith.
faith.
Because no one expects the Imperial Inquisition.
Yep. Your opponent, the live-action Grand Inquisitor, is prowling like a roaring lion. So, yes, the Inquisitors are out and about in the galaxy looking for the remaining Jedi under the service of Darth Vader to wipe out the remaining Jedi Order. So one such Jedi on the run is tracked down to this town in, I believe it's Mos Eisley, on Tatooine.
Yes.
Kind of implied to be. And he manages to escape the Inquisitors and kind of runs into Obi Wan in the desert. It's like, hey, Obi Wan, you're once this great, powerful Jedi. Help me and these other living Jedi try to like fight back. And he's like, I don't know who this Obi Wan is. I'm Ben Kenobi. Totally different from Obi Wan. Get out of here. And the young guy is like, what happened to you, man? So eventually that guy gets caught, and somehow or other, one of the, I believe it's the third sister?
Her name is Reva. I just looked
Reva.
it up because I forgot her name, and I just called her Girl Boss for the entire time that we watched the show.
So she'd be doing the girl bossing things, and she's sort of obsessed with this idea of getting sort of Darth Vader enemy number one, Obi Wan Kenobi, because Vader knows he's still alive, and he's been searching the last 10 years trying to find him and get his revenge. And Reva is determined to win Darth Vader's favor by capturing Obi-Wan. So Owen and Obi-Wan sort of had a tenuous relationship because Obi-Wan's like, I gotta train him to be a Jedi like his dad. And
And
Owen's
it's like,
no.
like his dad is the problem.
Mm-hmm. So Reva is being sort of held in check by the Grand Inquisitor and the other Inquisitors because, being dark side users, they're constantly in competition with each other, trying to one-up each other, and it's just a very unhealthy dynamic. So she hatches a plot because she managed to find somehow that Senator Organa and Obi-Wan were friends during the time of the Republic. So she's like, I'm going to kidnap his adopted daughter to try to force Senator Organa to cry out to Obi-Wan for help, which is exactly what happens. So 10-year-old Leia is captured by these, I don't know, like
Space pirates
who are awful at
existing
and running after a kid and not running into branches, and probably one of the worst sequences since the
poorly
choreographed sequences since the in the 6 months earlier with the
bike chase.
Yeah,
with,
the cyberpunk bike chase from Boba Fett.
Boba Fett. Yeah,
I digress.
That was dumb.
So Obi-Wan reluctantly is like, well, Luke's probably safe. Nobody knows he's here. And at Senator Organa's insistence goes off to try to find Leia. So eventually he tracks her down to this, I don't know, industrial planet. I don't remember the name of it. It doesn't really matter. And Reva's like, haha, I was behind it all along. Now die. And so it's chasing him down. He manages to grab Leia and escape with the help of this dude.
This dude who was impersonating a Jedi to scam people out of money, but also get them off the planet, sort of a thing. He had a deal with a guy at the docks.
Smuggle. And so the Inquisitors narrowly fail to catch Obi-Wan, and Reva, quote unquote, kills the Grand Inquisitor who's standing in her way of catching Obi-Wan.
And while she's leaving, she's like, "Hey, Obi-Wan, I'm taunting you from the shadows, or because you're hiding in the shadows.
Still alive.
I report to Darth Vader, and yes, Darth Vader's still a thing. Anakin's still alive. Why do I know his name is Anakin? We don't explain that until altogether too late in the series to be compelling or interesting.
But it is at least consistent, but we'll get to that. Coherent, I should say. So Obi-Wan and Leia are on sort of this automated cargo ship that is forced down on this like desert planet where they're told, or no, it's being sent to this desert planet where they're told like this secret underground railroad.
Desert, it's more like a giant wheat field.
Well, yeah. Well,
In
it
some
used
places.
to be a lush planet, but the Empire like exploited it.
It did the Empire thing.
Yeah, it did the Spain thing where they just like cut down all their green stuff and now it's a desert. So anyway, they're on this planet and Obi-Wan's like, well, dang, Anakin's still alive. Oh boy, oh geez. And Leia's trying to figure out what's going on, being the spunky little gal as she is. So they're on this planet looking for this contact who's supposed to help smuggle them off worlds, and get her back to Alderaan, or Leia back to Alderaan. So in this confrontation at an Imperial checkpoint, one of the Imperial officers starts shooting her own men and is like, hey, I'm your contact. Let's go to this hideout, this safe house with my robot buddy. So naturally, I think Reva put like a tracker on them or something like that.
No, that was later. I think they just
they caught wind of these Imperial troopers being killed, and Vader's like, yep, that's him. Let's go get him. So the Inquisitors and Darth Vader show up on this planet and start razing the town. Be like, where's Kenobi? And he tries to escape, but Vader catches up to him and lights him on fire with this gas barrel thing. And the same fire also...
Oh, it's a reversal of episode 3. Oh, look at us.
I have failed you, Anakin. I have failed you. And the same fire 10 seconds later allows the smuggler lady to help Obi-Wan escape from Vader, who has a nasty habit of watching people run away. In the chaos, though, Leia is again captured by Reva, who takes her back to the Inquisitor base. And Obi-Wan's, with this group of, like, not yet rebels, because we're not at that point, but sort of this,
rebellious
rogue
group.
cell that is helping Jedi, escape the Empire. So he's like, I need to go get Leia. And they're like, okay, I guess we'll help you, but you're on your own. So he breaks into the castle with the help of the former Imperial officer lady. And they rescue Leia and escape narrowly. And Reva's like, well, crap. And Vader's like, well, you said you had him, so tell me one reason why I shouldn't kill you. And she's like, I put a tracker on him. We can find where their hideout is. And he's like, oh, okay. So they go to the hideout, and Reva is holding... They're on this mining planet or something, and so they're stuck because the Empire blew up the doors of the hangar, and they're trying to fix it. Or the little turtle droid thing that Leia has as a pet was reprogrammed to be evil,
And also
which
the
you
tracker.
totally couldn't tell because its eyes are red now. So definitely subtle. And
It's
has
flying a CD player.
Yep.
Her flying Walkman.
Yep. And they managed to catch wind of this and turn the robot good again and get rid of the tracker because why not?
But
And
during
Obi-Wan's like, okay, I need to buy you guys time. I'm going to go pretend to surrender to Reva and try to throw her off balance, which he sort of manages to do. And he finds out when he surrenders himself that Reva was a youngling in the Jedi Temple that was she was like almost, what's the word for this? She was stabbed by Anakin Skywalker in the Purge, but wasn't killed. And somehow became, she stayed alive through a burning desire for revenge in the dark side, and so was trying to work her way up to him to kill him in vengeance for
getting stabbed by a lightsaber, somehow surviving based on anger is a running theme in this show.
And maybe that's the only reason why Qui-Gon didn't die. But anyway, he didn't stay alive. Anyway,
Right.
So while these people are trying to work on an escape, Obi-Wan's out there buying time, and he tricks the Inquisitor into going off balance, and he runs away again.
But he's also like, hey, if you get Darth Vader down here to fight me, he might be...
help me take him down.
Help me. Help me help you. Help me.
Yep. So Vader's like, this is taking too long. I'm going to go down here and do it myself. So he starts ripping open doors, being all BA and stuff. And catches a ship as they're about to fly away. But it was a decoy ship. He catches a ship with a force in like this pretty cool sequence and rips it apart and discovers, that was the decoy ship. They escaped. So the Empire, the Vader's Star Destroyer is chasing after this passenger ship.
Before that, this is the point where we learn about where Reva tries to turn on Darth Vader.
Oh yeah, and he basically is like, bruh, and wipes the floor with her in a duel where he doesn't even open his own lightsaber.
Also, shocking twist, the Grand Inquisitor, who we know to be alive during the time of the show Star Wars Rebels, which happened significantly later than the show, turns out he wasn't dead despite the fake out trying to say that he
and
was.
Darth Vader tricked her into letting
I've
her...
never seen it, and I knew he wasn't dead.
Mm-hmm. So he's like, surprise, I'm not dead, die now, and she gets stabbed, but she doesn't die again.
It's like, haven't you learned anything?
So she's like, you
should have gone for the head.
I found this broken message thing that says something about Tatooine. Wait a minute. That Owen Lars guy seemed to know more than he let on. I'm going to go screw around with that.
Because Obi Wan has a communicator that leads directly to Bail Organa, and Bail's like, hey, you've been out there trying to save my daughter for longer than I'm comfortable with. Just checking in. Mm-hmm. And if you don't check back with me, I'm going to check in with Tatooine and take Luke somewhere else.
Yep. In the chaos, Luke somehow, or Obi-Wan somehow left him behind. So the Star Destroyer is chasing after him, and Obi-Wan's like, okay, I guess I got to face Vader once again. And this will give these other people a chance to escape, because I bet you he's going to focus on me and leave you guys alone. And he gets into an escape pod and flies to a nearby planet. And Vader does indeed break off the chase and go after Obi-Wan. And they have sort of a rematch duel on this planet in the mist and the rocks. And it's kind of cool. Obi-Wan manages to sort of regain his strength in the Force and more or less overpower Vader to a point where he cuts his helmet open. And is literally face to face with, because Obi-Wan tells him earlier in the show, I am what you made me, master. And Obi-Wan sees that that's true. And he says he's sorry, Anakin. And Vader's like, you didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. I did. What was like the follow-up thing he said to that? But like basically saying like, I killed Anakin Skywalker. I am Darth Vader. I've chosen to embrace this. And Obi-Wan finally accepts, well, then my friend is truly dead. Goodbye, Darth. And he leaves Vader behind for some reason instead of finishing him off because episode 4 needs to happen.
Right.
So Obi-Wan gets away and is like, senses, oh crap, Luke is in danger. Hurries back to Tatooine, where Owen and Beru manage to kind of sort of hold off Reva long enough for Luke to run away into the desert in terror, and she beats him up with the Force a little bit, but can't quite bring herself to kill him because plot armor, and she sees in the young innocent Luke, herself being struck down by Darth Vader. So she has a change of heart, can't bring herself to do it, and brings Luke back to his family and Obi-Wan, and sort of repents, and kind of sort of sets aside the dark side, ? So Obi-Wan is now more confident in being a Jedi and in his mission. He returns Leia to the Organas and has sort of a little goodbye with her and gives her mom's pistol holster. And he goes back to watching over Luke in the desert. And
this time accompanied by Force Ghost Qui-Gon Jinn, because he
apparently needed
now
to
ready.
Be more balanced in the Force or something like that in order to be able to communicate with Qui-Gon in the Force.
It was he needed to let go of his past.
Yep.
It was he was very we'll go into this with the analysis later, I suppose, but yeah.
And so Emperor's like, Vader, you're kind of acting sketchy and out of balance. Let's put this whole Obi-Wan thing to the side for now because I need you focused on what I need you for right now. So call off the hunt, as it were, and focus on the task at hand. And that's pretty much the end of the show. Oh, yeah. And Obi-Wan gets to say hello there to Luke.
By the way, if hello there isn't the title of the episode, I will bonk you.
Okay, fine. There it is, folks. You heard it here first. Actually, no, you probably saw it there first, and then but whatever. So thoughts on Kenobi?
There are thoughts, aren't there?
There are thoughts, but not any thoughts, even in the bar scene.
Yeah, that's refreshing, I guess.
No death sticks.
I think an insight that friend of the show John had in our group chat kind of sums up an important point that I think makes this series feel a little bit off. And that's
No
just
John
like
Williams.
there's no aliens. Like
Very few.
Oh yeah,
There are some.
there's
like in the background of the one planet.
And there's the star-nosed mole cab driver. But that's about it. Yeah, very
it's
alien
they're
light.
very few and far between. And
Most
they
of
don't
the
really
extras
play
are definitely
us.
just people.
Yeah.
Which is weird if you're on Tatooine, which is like weird alien central.
Right.
Now,
And I have my cynical opinions about why they did that. But the
you
fact
can,
remains
you can
that
say
it,
because of pandemic restrictions and things like that, they probably weren't able to produce as many props as they would have liked. But
Or just to make
really
Reva
knows?
stand out more.
or yeah, and some of the other characters of color that had meaty, like somewhat supporting roles.
It's like you can't look too. You can't.
which nothing wrong with that. It's just a weird choice. Like, why can't you have both?
I mean,
Right, like, I
prequel
feel like
trilogy,
aliens
original
are-
trilogy, and sequel trilogy all did.
Yeah, they have like aliens can serve the same purpose. You can communicate the same message.
Yep.
Like, if you actually artfully wrote it instead of
Being
ham-fistedly
ham-fisted,
throwing it in the subtext.
Yep.
and which
Which fortunately more or less remains subtext.
yeah,
Yeah, at least it had that.
yeah.
I think what the show did best was the characters of Anakin and Obi Wan make a natural transition from episode 3 to where they end up in episode 4.
Which,
Yeah.
if they didn't make a natural transition, then this show would have failed,
Right.
like completely, and broken the entire timeline of everything.
Like in hindsight, not having to worry about them like screwing with the canon every time you watch the show, it'll probably be better to me.
Because there was a part of me that's like, would a Kathleen Kennedy helmed Disney owned Star Wars kill off a main character that they established as living later in an attempt to be to service a girl boss moment?
Yeah.
Is that a thing they would do? And the fact that I asked myself that question concerned me,
Yep.
because I'm like,
Which fortunately that was unwarranted, but it felt warranted.
yeah, like,
Um,
and I think that's one thing that was weird to me about the show. The stakes felt off. Like,
Yeah.
if you know episode 4 exists, you know that none of the things they build up as being the things you should be worried about are things that you should be worried about.
Yeah.
Like, no, they're not going to find out about Luke or find out about Leia or kill Obi Wan.
To give them credit, I do think the show understood that where the conflict needed to lie was within Obi-Wan himself and his regret over the past. And I think it was, I just liked seeing Ewan McGregor back as Obi-Wan. That was fun. And his performance is, good and consistent with, how he played the prequels.
And hey, Hayden Christensen was better written and directed than
Yeah.
most of his scenes in the prequel trilogy. So
Yep. The flashback scene where they didn't bother de-aging him for some reason, but
I mean, it would have looked weird if they did de-age
Fair
him
enough.
too. So
fair enough. But
And-
Darth Vader was very well portrayed. in
and
the
we got to
series.
see actual clone troopers in people dressed as clone troopers in armor
Oh, yeah.
during the Order 66 scene.
Yep, live
They
action.
were CGI beforehand. Although, did we?
I think in that little flashback
Flashback
in
of-
Mandalorian, they might have been.
It wasn't Mandalorian. It was
Or
the
no,
Book of
Boba
Boba
Fett.
Fett pretending to be Mandalorian.
Yeah, or Mandalorian pretending to be Book of Boba Fett, if we're honest. But anyway, so that was fun. Some little cameos here and there.
One thing I
but
also
the Darth Vader sequences were properly menacing, and you
Dude.
saw how like Anakin has become twisted and drunk on his power in the dark side, and is just wasting people left and right.
I love how much respect is thrown on the character of
James
Darth
Earl
Vader in
Jones
this show.
isn't the voice, and
Hayden Christensen's in the armor.
Christensen's in the armor. Yep.
But like even like in Rebels, in Rogue One, every scene like involving Darth Vader gives him the air of imposing menace that he has.
An unstoppable force.
Yeah.
Like,
That
no
you-
pun intended. Because, like, he's not somebody you defeat. He's somebody you escape from.
He's not he's somebody you survive narrowly.
Yep.
Or get stabbed in
Yeah.
the chest and then survive because plot armor.
Yeah, I think they executed that really well just in the various scenes that Vader was involved in. Like the way they choreographed his lightsaber fights are just these like brutal, powerful attacks.
That look effortless
he
for
only
him.
uses one arm to.
And he's just like raw anger fueling his combat style. And it's not this like flowing, sweeping style that the Jedi have. It's
Very
just this.
direct.
Yeah.
And in his fight with Reva, I don't think he ever uses his own lightsaber. Like, he just fights her using just the Force to block her lightsaber and turns her lightsaber against her and throws it back to her, basically
It's like,
screwing with her the entire time.
sorry, girl boss, you ain't nothing.
So,
And that scene where he like grabs the whole ship as
Yep.
it's starting to fly
Yep.
off.
It does a really good job selling the description of him being more machine than man, twisted and evil.
and it's an interesting note. It's a nice little touch how, like, when Obi Wan departs, he's like, "Then my friend truly is dead. Goodbye, Darth." He just calls him Darth, and in Episode 4, Obi Wan just calls him Darth. So that was kind of a neat little tie-in touch they did there with the dialogue.
Another kind of thing that I kind of respected the choice was in the second to last episode. It was underscored by that whole flashback training sequence, right? Where it was Anakin and Obi-Wan training lightsaber dueling.
Yep.
You know, and Anakin's like, "I've grown so powerful beyond you, Obi-Wan." He's like, "No, you're predictable."
Yep. The problem with
Because-
you, Anakin, is you always have to win.
And so that underscoring Obi-Wan's escape and reading him and being a step ahead showed that, no, Obi-Wan's still the master. You're still that learner from pre-episode 2, despite you being 10 years older.
Yep.
And so I think that also was like a neat little way to homage the dialogue from the original movie in a way that made it not feel weird.
Yeah. And in a very sort of, A- fifth grader essay sort of character arc way, Reva at least had a complete arc in the show. Like, they set it up, like, sort of hinting at that she might have been one of the Jedi younglings from the flashback at the very beginning of the show. And she has sort of a change of heart, because at first she's driven by revenge and wanting to kill Darth Vader for what she did to her and making her feel helpless to help her friends and try to kill Vader, realizing she can't do that, tries to take it on Luke, has a change of heart.
Because, well, I'm just becoming him now. That's a problem.
They managed to give her more dimension than simply girl boss, which is more character development than Rey ever had.
I mean, she only had that development in 2 of the 6 episodes, and
Right.
she might have been.
Right.
I might have actually cared,
Yeah.
if they had introduced it earlier,
Or at least, like,
and
acknowledged
done it more artfully, or tried to establish her as a strong antagonist
Yeah.
in a way other than killing off a character I know isn't dead.
Yeah. The little girl who plays young Princess Leia does a remarkable job of being like, I can totally see this little kid growing up to be Princess Leia from the movies.
I mean, yeah, she's a kid actor, and the writing and directing isn't always 100% on point.
But-
But she kind of captures some of that spirit and spunk, and I just envy her. She must have been having a grand
Oh, yeah.
old time being
yeah.
the actual Princess Leia.
Yep. I mean, compared to what Luke has to do in the show, like, not bad. Not bad, kid.
Hey, you got games on that phone?
I loved that. Oh, man. But, yeah. Any other cool things we liked about Obi-Wan before we get into the deeper analysis?
I was gonna say something.
The fight scenes were good. We touched on that, but
Oh, yeah.
choreography was good.
And that's very much a bit of the beauty bit.
Like, the duels didn't quite line up. I think the apex of lightsaber duels was definitely like the Mustafar fight. For me anyway. But it makes sense that Obi-Wan isn't quite what he used to be and Darth Vader's completely different. So it made sense that their duels were different. Like their fighting styles were a little different now.
I remember what I was going to point out. It was more of a weirditude than the thing. I find it odd that throughout the entire thing, the Grand Inquisitor's like, I think you're being too emotional, despite being a dark side user, and being overly emotional is our whole thing.
It just cuts to
and then at
Captain
the
Marvel.
end, General Emperor Palpatine's like, I think your feelings are unclear on this matter. Even though, like, going with, like, letting go and being driven by your feelings is the whole Sith thing. And it's like, why are you criticizing Darth Vader for being emotional when being emotional made him Darth Vader?
But then again, I think it's sort of referencing how there's still a little bit of good in him, and the Emperor is trying to nip that in the bud.
Be manipulative. Yeah.
Sure. But I just kind of find it funny whenever a dark side user is criticized for being emotional. It's like, dude, that's the whole shtick.
Well, you're only allowed to have one emotion, and that's anger.
Anger.
So I guess it's not inconsistent.
Well, fear also.
Yeah,
That's fear leads to anger, and anger leads to hate, and hate leads to suffering.
And
As
suffering
Yoda.
leads to the ducks.
Dark side.
The ducks?
And hate leads to not just killing not just the men, but the women and the children too.
Alrighty. Do we let's see, should we get into the analysis then?
Oh, Spicer.
Right
It's
on.
about that time.
Truth. What are some truths we can find in Obi Wan? I'd say the need to confront the mistakes of your past head on and acknowledge them. While also
also not allowing them to define you.
yeah.
Right.
Because that's sort of the difference between Darth Vader and Obi-Wan. He's sort of obsessed with his failure to beat Obi-Wan, and, he's still very much the learner, and Obi-Wan's the master. Obi-Wan, on the other hand, is full of regret not being able to save Padme, not being able to save Anakin from himself. The failure of the Jedi Order as a whole, to see the whole, takeover of the Sith, purge of the Jedi thing coming. Sort of his helplessness and losing touch with the Force. He manages to overcome that by facing down his mistake that he made, was, being Anakin's master and failing him.
And at the end of the day, as responsible as he was for a lot of things that happened, ultimately the only one responsible for Darth Vader's true fall into being Darth Vader was Anakin himself and the choices he made.
Yep.
Now,
Given all the
Obi-Wan,
contributing factors.
Yes.
Even so.
So, although Obi-Wan had his faults and his mistakes and such, and the whole Jedi Code did, it was everybody in the prequels was responsible for making Darth Vader. Let's be real.
He understood that Obi-Wan understands that he must, in order to be able to heal and move on, he must no longer look to the regrets of the past, but rather the hope of the future, the new hope, if you will, of his mission of protecting Luke and Leia to an extent, because they're
Which
going
will
to be the
age
future.
him a solid 40 years.
Oh boy.
Yep.
All that sand.
Yeah. I mean, those two suns will probably bleach your hair pretty good. But yeah, sort of that he faces up the sort of the despair, faces to his mistakes and his despair, and replaces it with hope and closure. Closure is sort of a theme of the story, of the series, and sort of the different approaches to it. Obi-Wan overcoming despair, Vader full of vengeance and rage, and Reva full of vengeance and rage, and realizing that's only going to create more
of another Darth Vader through her.
Yep. Yeah, those are some of the main themes. Any other truths to look at in Obi-Wan? Mostly it.
I mean, that's the main thing.
Yeah. Goodness. What is good in Obi-Wan Kenobi?
There's a couple of really good characters. I mean, Bail Organa is a good supportive father to to Leia, who he has adopted. And even though she knows she's adopted, she also knows that they are very much family. Mm-hmm. It's like the fact that you're adopted doesn't change the fact that I'm your dad and we're a family. Right?
Yep. Same thing with her mom.
And same thing with Owen Lars.
Yep.
Owen is just a simple farmer tending to his water.
Yep.
And he wants what's best for his son, Luke.
Even if he expresses that in a rather gruff and standoffish way, Obi Wan manages to earn his respect, and vice versa.
But also, kind of keep your distance. You can say hi. You can say hello there to him and give him that toy plane he plays with when he's 19 in the next movie.
Yep. Because every single prop from the original trilogy must be accounted for somewhere. In some
Everything
media.
has a backstory.
Yep. Yeah, and let's see. The sort of underground railroad organization, whatever they're called, is actually that might be the name of them. Like a couple of them, like sacrificed their lives.
It was
so
the
that
something
rest
road, but I don't think it was the Underground Railroad. That
No,
might have been a little
that's-
too specific of a reference.
Yeah,
That
no.
they didn't want to cross the streams with their
No.
racial colored
Commentary.
commentary.
Yeah.
So
But sort of helping people escape the Empire, like people laying down their lives to help others. That's obviously a very good thing. Sort of a foreshadowing of the rebellion as it would come later.
mm-hmm.
Those people are good, and like the Imperial officer lady is somewhat interesting in how she sees like the awful things that the Empire's done. And
Yeah, she
the
started
things,
being a believer in the Empire and joined the ranks, but then she's like,
the horrible things that.
oh,
she
that's
herself
what the
did.
Empire does? No, I'm gonna nope out of this.
I'm out.
I'm gonna head out.
Yep. So those are good things. Yeah.
And Obi Wan himself.
Yeah.
Being that there's a line early on in the show when the Inquisitors are hunting the unrelated Jedi as a
Head fake.
yeah, but like the
Jedi
the
code is like an itch. They can't help themselves from helping people.
it's like the Jedis are programmed from childhood to be the good doers and peacekeepers.
Selflessness.
So if we just cause some ruckus, Jedi are going to show up to defend them, which it pains Obi-Wan to not stand up, right? But Obi-Wan event like that Jedi code, that part of the Jedi code that Obi-Wan still embodies in his quest to save Leia is that's certainly good.
Beauty. What is beautiful?
Yeah.
Any other goodness?
No, I'm sorry. We already covered the previous two, and I've had them flipped to my brain for some reason when you went there. So yeah, beauty.
Cool.
My bad.
Consider the switch flipped. Beauty. What is beautiful in Obi-Wan? There's a few creative things that don't quite work, but there's a lot that does.
Yeah.
Like the lightsabers
Things in
are
the
cool.
first 4 episodes kind of meh. And then the last 2, they kind of step up the creative vision.
Particularly, one thing I noticed is there are in the soundtrack, because I love me some Star Wars music. There are very subtle allusions to classic Star Wars themes, like the Imperial March and the Force theme / Obi-Wan's theme. So there's a lot of like little allusions, like
little echoes.
Yeah, but none of them are completely formed. They're all just kind of stray shadows. But by the end of the show, like in the last couple of episodes, we get full versions of these themes played at the key ending points of the characters to show that their identities that we see in episode 4 that are associated with these themes have solidified. This is where we end them and begin them in the next movies.
Yep.
And I thought that was a neat, subtle storytelling touch, using those like ubiquitously understood through pop culture musical themes.
Yep. Despite the conspicuous lack of, not total lack, but lack of, aliens, at least at the levels we're used to seeing. Obviously the set work and the character design and everything is, it's on point. It's Star Wars.
It's original trilogy Star Wars. What's wrong with the old-fashioned stormtroopers and TIE fighters?
Yep.
And the fact that they make it very stylistically consistent with Episode 4 in a lot of ways is just really commendable. Right down to the few alien characters having obviously handcrafted puppeted parts to them, right?
The prosthetics, yeah.
Yeah.
Which that's like sort of an homage to the way the original trilogy was done, and kind of a neat touch that they've been doing lately with the live action offerings. No Max Rebo in this one though.
No, but he's probably got a gig. At
He's got a
Jabba's
gig,
Palace.
man. Go play my gig.
Also, we did not get a follow-up story for
The Death Sticks guy.
the Death Sticks guy, Evan
Yeah.
Sosbagano or something like
Yeah.
that. I wanted to see Death
Sad
Sticks
day.
guy.
I was waiting for it when he was like walking on that like city planet, and it just
Did see Tamora Morrison as an old clone. That was kind of neat.
true. Yeah, as like a homeless veteran clone begging in the streets. That was kind of a neat touch. But yeah, overall, I don't know. I like the series.
In hindsight, it was okay. It was on par with the weakest of the prequel trilogy movies.
I wasn't going into it expecting my mind to be blown. I was just like, I hope they make this so I can enjoy it. And overall, they did.
I was going into it kind of apprehensive because there's a lot of delicate things that I felt like
They had to tiptoe around.
They had to tiptoe around, and they kind of, in the first several episodes, immediately stumbled over some of the things that I'm like, yep, that's a thing that feels weird. But the last two
They
episodes...
righted the ship, more or less.
Sufficiently.
Sufficiently.
I still feel like Leia's message to Obi-Wan has different context now that
Yeah.
feels weird, the wording she uses and how she addresses him and such, but I mean,
Message in episode 4.
message in episode 4. It's like,
Yeah.
Hey, first
It's
I'm going to
colored somewhat
introduce
differently
myself
by this,
I'm going to introduce myself by covering a connection you have to my father years ago instead of talking about the thing you did for me 10 years ago.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Although you could make the argument that was sort of to maintain a level of plausible deniability. I mean, because she doesn't know Vader's her father, but Obi-Wan does. And he's like, let's pretend like we don't know each other, because if Vader's like, why does she know who Obi-Wan is? You know, being a whole risk. You can
Sure,
that
but
just occurred to me.
that's defending it after the fact instead of having a good
Whether that was
explanation for it
intentional or
within.
not. Well, he does say to Leia, like, let's not contact each other because it's dangerous.
You could have just not called him Obi-Wan in her presence, and that would have been just fine.
Yeah. Although I don't think.
Anyway.
Anyway.
Weird nitpicks aside.
Unity. What brings everything together? Closure.
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I'd say closure is
But
sort
yeah.
of the theme of this show, or the sort of the central principle of the show.
Because all three primary characters are seeking closure.
It takes a very different approach than the sequel trilogy with the whole "let the past die" thing. It's like face the past and move on.
Right. Whereas
In a healthy way.
Let the Past Die, Kill It If You Have to
Yep.
was kind of the toxic way the directors were viewing Star Wars as a whole, and the entire
Yep.
sequel trilogy feels like an argument between two directors of what Star Wars actually means.
Yep.
Whereas this has a unified idea of this is where Obi-Wan lets go of the mistakes of the past and works on making the best possible future.
And Ewan McGregor was like, an executive producer for this series, and he came into the project being like, okay, I want to explore more of the Obi-Wan character and be faithful to that. And I think overall, because it was made in current time, like there's sort of some expected stuff they threw in there, but I think it manages to be passable at the very least.
I'll find myself.
It wasn't bad.
I'll probably find myself revisiting the last two episodes of it sometime in the future.
Yeah. Yeah.
I actually kind of feel like 6 episodes was a bit much. They could have
Yeah.
trimmed out an entire planet visit and condensed it into maybe just a movie.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was originally supposed to be a movie, but then the way Solo turned out,
And
like
the way
the reception to it turned out.
and the way the Disney Plus stuff turned out, it was like,
Yeah.
oh, making series is the future.
Yeah.
Even though
it makes sense.
I think they have like Taika Waititi on board to make a future Star Wars project.
An untitled project.
And apparently there was an article where he was, working on Thor Love and Thunder and was like, hey, I'm working on Star Wars next. Hey, Natalie Portman, have you been in a Star Wars thing before? She's like, yes, I have. I can't be involved in that because my character wouldn't fit. She's
My
like,
character's
oh,
dead.
Oh, I forgot about your thing. Right.
Natalie
So that was
Portman.
a funny article I discovered over the past week.
Nice. Any other comments? Anything to add, Riley?
Nope. Basically everything I had thought to mention has been mentioned.
See, that's the problem when you have 3 people who are podcast hosts that mostly think alike.
And also and are all Star Wars geeks.
Yeah.
Yes.
We cover a lot of the same ground.
We need to find something divisive we can debate about, or something we all dislike for different reasons.
Apparently for Ethan Stevie, that's Megamind. He hates Megamind, apparently. Found that out in the live stream. All right, bring it full circle. Talk about the Crunch stream.
I think our tastes in things are too similar to have anything that we're like really divided on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we could feasibly find things that we all dislike for different reasons.
Yeah, for sure. Like for Nathan, it's Mario Party. For me, it's Smash Bros. For you, it's what would be the thing?
Overwatch.
Saying
or,
Italian.
Modern day Blizzard.
Yeah, don't get me started about Diablo Immoral.
It's deep dish
There we go.
pizza. That would be the thing. The deep dish.
We've all got
pizza.
things we can get
Deep
started
dish,
on.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
what we should get started on doing is ending.
Yeah, that's true. Thanks for listening to the Palladium Papists. You can listen to us on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. Leave a rating to let us know what you think of the show, and follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Papists. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or complaints, or suggestions for future episodes, email us at palladiumpapists@gmail.com.
And who knows, maybe suggestions for future episodes might give us more things to talk about, because we'll have different thoughts on it.
You never know.
You never know.
So we'll talk to you again next week. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.